People are ripping the screens off their MacBook Pros, and not because of some strange accident. They're doing it on purpose in what's quickly becoming one of the most intriguing, and some say borderline wacky, tech trends out there. But it's not just casual tinkerers who have taken notice. A growing number of gamers, often on a never-ending quest to find new ways of boosting performance or saving cash, are beginning to ask if this headless MacBook approach could work for them too. At first, the idea of severing the display from Apple's famously stylish laptop sounds absurd. Yet, there's more to this experiment than meets the eye. In a world where Apple is known for tight controls and high price tags, some folks have discovered that repurposing a damaged MacBook Pro can reveal surprising benefits, and it might even address specific needs for budget-friendly or minimalist gaming setups. By the end of this story, you may find yourself rethinking everything from Apple's design philosophies to the lengths people will go just to run their games in a unique, unconventional way. Welcome to Gamers Service Announcement, GSA. The more you know. Click that subscribe button and hit on the alert button to get notified about new videos for you. Apple has earned a reputation for delivering some of the most elegant hardware on the planet, so seeing a MacBook Pro deliberately stripped of its screen is enough to turn heads. Strangely, the practice began showing up on online forums where users discussed how to salvage MacBooks that had broken or cracked displays. Rather than dump hundreds of dollars into repairs, a few daring souls found a simpler alternative. Remove the screen entirely and plug the remaining body into an external monitor. From there, this weird fix gained a following. What started as a necessity, rehabbing a damaged Mac, evolved into a novelty. People liked the idea of having an ultra-compact desktop Mac that retained the built-in keyboard and trackpad. Conversations on these forums expanded to include gamers who wanted a dedicated machine for certain titles that run on macOS or through emulation software. They reasoned that if the display was already ruined, why not pivot to a headless design that resembled a gaming console on their desk? Curiously, what might have been dismissed as an odd mod soon sparked deeper discussions about how we use Apple devices. Was this a cost-saving stroke of genius or a sign that people were fed up with Apple's pricey ecosystem? And if it could help certain gamers run older titles or casual indie games at a lower cost, was it worth the potential risk? These early questions paved the way for the mod's ever-growing popularity. Apple's well known for its rigorous control over repairs, replacements, and modding. The company's staunch stance on product security and design integrity has often placed it at the center of debate, and the headless MacBook phenomenon is yet another curveball. While Apple has never publicly endorsed removing a MacBook Pro's display, it's also never completely crushed the practice. But that doesn't mean they're simply looking the other way. Gamers, too, have felt Apple's reluctance to open the hardware ecosystem. If you're primarily a PC gamer, you're used to the idea of upgrading graphics cards, swapping out RAM, or tinkering with system internals to squeeze out more frames per second. By contrast, Apple's laptops are notoriously sealed off. The question of whether you could hack a Mac into a better gaming device, either by repurposing a broken laptop or through external GPU setups, resonates strongly with players who want freedom and flexibility. It's no secret Apple has historically favored a fully integrated approach, from the unibody design to proprietary connectors. In the eyes of some, that fosters brand loyalty. Others see it as a locked door. The headless MacBook mod is a surprising example of how determined enthusiasts and some adventurous gamers are pushing back against those locked doors in unexpected ways. So what's the real motive behind going headless? The reasons are many, and they're not just about having a cool conversation piece. At the top of the list is cost efficiency. If you find a MacBook Pro with a non-functional screen but intact internals, you can often snag it for way less than a fully functioning model. Suddenly, you've got a machine equipped with Apple's powerful M1 or Intel processor, perfect for tasks like video editing, casual gaming, or even streaming your favorite titles, provided you have an external display. Then there's the aesthetic angle. Minimalism is a key part of modern desk setups, and the idea of a decapitated Mac is strangely appealing. For gamers who value space or want a unique rig, it's a fresh alternative. You essentially turn what was a slim laptop into a slightly thicker console that still powers macOS or even other operating systems through virtualization. Another factor is cooling. Laptop gamers often worry about heat, especially in Apple's thinner devices. With the display removed, the machine isn't trapping as much heat in a closed clamshell design. While hard data is sparse, many who try this mod say it runs a bit cooler. That can matter for gaming scenarios, especially if you're pushing the processor with higher-end titles or intense emulation tasks. And there's also the rebellious thrill. Why not see if you can one-up Apple by crafting a specialized system they never intended to release? Yet, behind every good reason lies a potential pitfall. Removing the screen might fix some issues, but it can create new ones, particularly if you're relying on certain Apple design elements. Gamers who want to connect third-party controllers or external GPUs sometimes face unexpected compatibility hurdles because macOS still believes a built-in screen is attached. It's a trade-off, and it's not without risks. Social media is flooded with photos and videos of successfully decapitated MacBooks. People proudly share their workspace transformations, a MacBook base sitting neatly under a monitor, functioning like a mini desktop. In gamer circles, you'll sometimes see folks hooking up a controller or keyboard-mouse combo, turning the contraption into a pseudo-gaming machine for titles available on macOS or through services like Steam and GOG. Some rely on emulators to play older console games, effectively turning their salvaged MacBook into a retro gaming station. But success stories can mask the lurking nightmares. In some cases, the Mac doesn't boot properly once the screen is gone. Others mention bizarre bugs where macOS tries to render content on the non-existent display, messing up login screens or resolution settings. If you're a gamer, that can mean a frustrating experience getting your game windows to appear correctly. And let's not forget potential mechanical hazards. Wrongly detaching the display cables can lead to short circuits, battery damage, or other fiascos that might permanently brick the device. Then there's the question of macOS updates. A standard laptop might handle updates smoothly, but in a modded environment, an update can cause the machine to freak out, sometimes randomly. Gamers who want the latest OS for better performance or game compatibility might find themselves locked in a cat-and-mouse game with Apple's software checks. One user described how every OS upgrade forced them into an external recovery mode, just to reteach the Mac that no built-in display was present. It's a dance between cleverness and caution. For every enthusiastic user praising their new desktop Mac, there's someone else lamenting the stability issues or the total meltdown that happened during an OS patch. And it's all unfolding in a space Apple has never officially sanctioned. That begs the question, if Apple is so protective of its products, how are they responding to these hacks behind the scenes? Apple's ethos has always been shrouded in mystery. Between cryptic patent leaks and swirling speculation, it's no wonder rumor mills go into overdrive whenever a new Apple patent surfaces. Some watchers point to sketches of designs that suggest modular MacBooks or iPads that double as laptop screens. For gamers, such possibilities ignite a spark of hope. Maybe Apple will one day truly cater to gaming, offering flexible hardware options, or even a new approach that merges iOS games with desktop-level power. The reality, of course, is more complicated. Apple is known to patent a huge range of ideas, many of which never see the light of day. However, that doesn't stop the speculation. Could Apple be planning a next-gen device that caters to different user groups, including gamers seeking that extra edge or customization? And if so, would a headless option be on the table? Meanwhile, the headless MacBook phenomenon keeps attracting attention, sometimes with sensational headlines. Shocking new trend exposes Apple's flaws, or decapitated MacBooks taking over desktops. You can almost picture the viral thumbnails. But behind the shock value, there's an underlying question. Are these modders pushing Apple in a direction it's hesitant to go, or simply revealing a path Apple has decided to abandon? Speculation also extends to whether Apple might clamp down via software updates that render the mod unusable, or implement stricter hardware checks. That fear resonates especially among those using these machines for gaming. If a future patch or new OS release breaks your carefully crafted setup, you might be stuck in no man's land with no official fix in sight. It's a risk that modding communities know all too well. The headless MacBook trend isn't just a quirky hack. It's part of a larger conversation about user rights and device ownership. The right to repair movement argues that once you buy a device, you should have the freedom to fix and modify it. Apple, however, has a reputation for pushing back on this idea, citing everything from safety concerns to preserving product integrity. Gamers are no strangers to this tension. On PC platforms, opening your rig, swapping graphics cards, or even adding more RAM is almost second nature. But with Apple's products, those freedoms are curtailed by design. The headless mod is in many ways a stand-in for the modding spirit that gamers cherish, except applied to a Mac. It challenges Apple's walled garden by showing that if you're determined enough, you can repurpose Apple's hardware in ways the company never intended. Critics say that messing with a Mac in such a drastic way might lead to e-waste if something goes wrong, or that it promotes unsafe electronics work. On the other hand, proponents insist it's a net positive if the alternative is to throw away a cracked screen MacBook. For a gamer on a tight budget, picking up a broken MacBook and converting it into a mini desktop for less resource-intensive titles might be a tempting proposition. The future of these projects may very well hinge on legislative changes. If more regions enact right-to-repair laws, Apple could be forced to release official repair guides, tools, and parts, potentially opening the door for a broader culture of Mac modding. And if that happens, one can only imagine how the gaming community might seize the opportunity. Would we see official Apple-blessed headless configurations for esports or streaming setups? Picture a not-so-distant future where Apple reveals a modular Mac system, maybe a sleek base unit that you can connect to an optional display with swappable components to suit your usage. If that possibility sounds like science fiction, recall how once upon a time people said Apple would never make its own processors or pivot away from Intel. For the gaming world, such a shift would be monumental. Apple's hardware has historically trailed behind Windows PCs for 888 gaming, partly due to the lack of modular GPU options and fewer game ports on macOS. But imagine a scenario where Apple's patents lead to a device that can not only function as a powerful workstation, but also an adaptable gaming platform. Perhaps with the ability to detach or bypass certain components for a headless or performance-optimized setup. Of course, skepticism abounds. Apple's entire brand rests on seamless integration and a strict top-down design philosophy. Encouraging more user control might undercut the premium aura or reduce sales of multiple device categories. But Apple has surprised us before, from the pivot to Apple Silicon to the reintroduction of ports on the MacBook Pro after years of dongle chaos. If the headless MacBook movement has taught us anything, it's that consumers and enthusiasts, gamers included, hunger for creative ways to mold hardware to their needs. Sometimes that means skipping official channels. Sometimes it means forging entirely new concepts that Apple might not have foreseen. Whether Apple eventually jumps on board with a headless or modular approach, or whether they tighten their grip further remains to be seen. But one thing is sure, the conversation has expanded far beyond a few obscure modding forums. The communities that have rallied around headless MacBooks are filled with a fascinating cross-section of users. Do-it-yourself hobbyists, Mac enthusiasts on a budget, environmental advocates who hate seeing computers go to waste, and yes, gamers who see a unique challenge in wringing performance from hardware that's typically not favored by the gaming industry. Join any relevant Discord server and you'll encounter people sharing 3D printed stands, tips on dealing with macOS resolution quirks, or even deep dives on how to optimize certain titles through Rosetta or Crossover. One of the surprising twists is the environmental angle. By salvaging broken laptops, these modders give MacBooks a second life. In a world where tech waste piles up alarmingly fast, every rescued device counts, especially one as resource-intensive to manufacture as a Mac. Gamers, who often own or rotate through multiple systems, also appreciate ways to keep older machines viable. The result? A sense of pride in participating in green computing, while still enjoying the games that do run well on macOS. Of course, modding a MacBook to remove its display is not without compromises. Expect potential software hiccups, especially if you're installing the latest OS versions. Some games may never work smoothly, thanks to Apple's locked-down graphics stack or the absence of a recognized internal display. But as these communities prove, with enough persistence, there's usually a workaround, even if it's not exactly what Apple had in mind. Beyond the practicalities, a deeper question lingers. Is this just a temporary fascination, or the start of a broader shift in how we think about Apple devices? With each successful mod and each YouTube video documenting it, more people discover they have options. It might be messy, and it might push against the ecosystem's boundaries, but it shines a light on the creative solutions that emerge when corporate limitations meet user determination. From the initial shock of seeing a MacBook Pro with its screen hacked off to the big picture debates surrounding Apple's design philosophy, the headless MacBook trend is anything but trivial. It reflects a growing wave of discontent among certain Apple users, gamers, and modders alike, who crave the freedom to shape their machines as they see fit. It also underscores how resourceful people can be when given the right incentive. turning a broken product into a desktop-like powerhouse, salvaging performance for coding, creativity, or even gaming. Along the way, we've uncovered controversies around repair policies, potential environment benefits, and rumors suggesting Apple might someday embrace more modular hardware. We've also seen how each macOS update can pose new challenges and how communities come together to share solutions, proving that an unsupported hack can thrive with enough collective will. So, where do you stand? Are you intrigued by the idea of resurrecting a cracked screen MacBook for a second life? Perhaps even as a compact gaming station? Or do you see the downsides as too daunting? Share your thoughts below. Whether you're a hardcore gamer, a curious tinkerer, or someone who simply loves a good underdog story in tech. Because in an ever-changing world of brand loyalty, innovative design, and unstoppable curiosity, the Headless MacBook might just be the tip of the iceberg for how users take control of their devices. Until next time, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the best ideas arise when people dare to step outside the norm. Be it for productivity, for a budget-friendly gaming build, or for the pure thrill of breaking the rules in search of something truly original. If you like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that alert button for more awesome videos. Gamers Service Announcement: the more you know.